All right, good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to episode 14 of the Real Estate Playbook. My name is Paul, your host once again. I hope everybody had a great Thanksgiving. Today, I am joined by someone who I did not know personally. We were just chatting a little bit to get to know each other, doing introductions and such. His name is Tom McGiveron. He actually reached out to us to be on the podcast, which I thought was awesome. He runs a real estate team based out of Long Island, but I'll try not to talk too much as he will want to introduce himself here in a moment. But Tom, how are you, sir?
Great.
Good having you
Excited.
on, my friend. Absolutely.
Yeah.
So, Tom, like I was saying, you and I don't know each other super well. We got a chance to talk here a minute ago, but for the people out there that aren't familiar with you, if you could just start off by letting us know a little bit about your background and your real estate career and kind of where you're at today.
All right. Yeah. So my name's Tom McGiveron. I am in New York on Long Island. So for those people who aren't familiar, like they think New York is New York City. You know, it's a huge state, and so I'm on the island. It's in Suffolk County on the kind of the eastern part of the island, and about 50 minutes away from New York City. So I service mainly Suffolk County, which is a big county. Is over 1.5 million people live here, 1.5 million and plus live in Nassau County, and then it's Queens that makes up basically the bit of Long Island. So I've been a real estate agent since 2007. I quit my full-time job in 2008, and during the best real estate market ever, the height of or the beginning of the Great Recession, and everyone thought I was like out of my mind, especially my mom. You know, she was like freaking out. You're leaving your benefits and the job and everything else, but I had that, it comes from my grandparents. My grandfather mainly was an entrepreneur his whole life, and I just wanted to get into it and really invest. And I just, it's funny. It's a funny story. To get my license, I was looking at these houses and I wanted to start investing, and I kept running into agents that had fancy cars, and all this other stuff. And I was really kind of impressed with that. But at the same time, I was realizing that they showed up late for appointments. They showed up in like the shorts. They didn't know anything about the houses. And again, this was 2007, 2006, So it was like everyone was selling a house like that, especially in '06. That was the height of the bubble, so to speak. And I started to get my license because I'm like, hey, if they can like do this, drive that car, and be successful, I know I could do a better job than that. So I dove in and got my license. No offense to any real estate agents but it's just that's how I got into it. And so I'm doing it 15 years, and I've sold quite a few houses, and I love doing it.
Well, that's great to hear, man. So I wanted to touch on something you just said, but correct me if I'm wrong. You run a team as well, right?
Yes. So in 2015, I started the team. I was at a different brokerage, and basically, I just had leads coming in, and I was like trying to expand. And I would say 2015 was like the start of all the team stuff. Really was. And
Yeah.
but I was one of the first in my office to start the team, and everyone was like, "Oh wow, he's got a team. What's he doing?" And then now it's like team. Everyone has a team. Even people who probably shouldn't have a team have a team. So it's kind of crazy, but it is what it is. The golden rule for a team is basically, hey, you have X amount of leads, you can't service all of them, you have a team.
Yeah.
But or to generate more. So
That makes sense. So something you said I wanted to make note of is I start to uncover themes in doing these episodes and talking to agents like yourself, which is some people might get into this career for the wrong reasons. You were talking about, people driving the nice cars and maybe they got a nice suit or whatever it might be, but they're showing up to appointments late. They're not really giving their clients the best service, that sort of thing. And it made me think of something from an earlier episode. Joe was talking to Quentin Dane from Dash Realty. And he said, I became a real estate agent because my real estate agent was terrible. And he's like, and he felt as though he could do it better, right? And you said, no offense to anybody out there, but I don't think that's necessarily an offensive thing to say. I think it just means that you got into it for the right reasons because you wanted to excel. And obviously you've done so. So I wonder if you agree with that sentiment about, you got to get into it for the right reasons other than just the flashy cars and whatever else it might be.
the thing about getting into the business is you think, I think a lot of people think that the ones that don't go into it for part-time, there's part-time people, they say, hey, I'm gonna get my license, they're gonna make an extra 15, 20 grand a year. They're a teacher, they're a cop, they're whatever they are, which is totally fine with me, you know. If you're going into it for an entrepreneurial, hey, this is going to be a stepping stone to my business, or you're going into it full time to be in business for yourself, I think a lot of people that take that route, they think somehow by default, because they're willing to work so hard, that the world will just respond to them and start giving them, the business, and they're just going to get mom and dad and get referrals, and they're just going to work their sphere, and they're going to watch a video on YouTube and be like, oh, wow, I could do this. Oh my gosh. And that's not how the world works. You have to work way harder than you ever thought you would think you'd need to. You have to work really smart as well. And you have to get into it for a reason that drives you. And if like a purpose, if you're driven by something, either you're being pushed or pulled or both, that's important to have, because that will keep you grinding when you need to grind, and motivated. Being successful, and motivated, exactly, and staying on task. So super important.
Awesome. Well, so far I haven't spoken with anybody that has said otherwise, so I'm glad to hear that you agree as well.
Oh yeah, it's a no-brainer. If you want to be successful, people are out there that could be lucky, but luck is, I think you said it before, you said 90%, or no, in another podcast, you said it's 90% execution and 10% luck.
Something like that,
and luck is where execution and persistence cross. That's where you get lucky.
Yeah, but, absolutely.
So
unless you're Irish,
you have like exactly. I was in my old office. I was in a company with a real estate agent, and she was very well known in the community, but not well known as a real estate agent. She had this reputation. Her family had this reputation, and then she got her license. And there are people like that too. You can just capitalize on your name. She also happened to be an incredible person. She could have been a total jerk and maybe not got the business. I don't know, but she was very successful. But that was, other than people like that, where you haven't, your family owns something or has a name in the neighborhood, and then you get your license, and people gravitate toward you. That luck is built on your hard work.
I could not agree more, sir. So talking about perceptions and things that people tend to misunderstand, I wanted to talk to you a little bit about something that I think a lot of people saw in the news during this pandemic era that we're still possibly currently in, which is just about people leaving certain larger states at an increased rate. So I know in Florida, we're basically a transplant state, as they say. We have most of our population, or a good amount of it at least, is folks that were not born and raised here, myself included. Long Island, by the way. I know you and I were talking about it earlier, but so I think New York was one of the states where people kind of heard or saw or whatever folks leaving this state. And I was wondering if that is true, if that's accurate, if that's something that you've seen at all, and if so, if you could maybe speak to what might be influencing that at all.
All right, so interesting dynamic. The real estate agents, like in other states that are incoming states, right, like Florida, North Carolina, they'll run ads to in other states where the people are moving from, right? Yeah. And I think a lot of states have that, because that's just the dynamic of real estate. However, I very rarely, I've never even thought about running an ad in Florida saying, hey, call me if you're relocating or something like that, or announcing some big project or some new development. Or something like that, like a planned unit development it just doesn't happen. Most people, and it's definitely in my experience, it's always an outbound person moving in. And that's just been like that for as long as I've been a real estate agent. It's just not, we're not a state where people are coming to. We're a state that people are leaving. Now, a couple of factors that might lead to that is, taxes are high. The state is run a certain way, and especially with COVID now, it's all the counties and everything else, they're all upside down. And there's some things about Long Island, like it's an absolutely amazing place to live. I love it. Great location, great the temperature, there's a lot going for it. But then there's other things like, the roads. You drive on the road in the main roads in North Carolina, they're beautiful. I was
Right.
just recently down in South Carolina. I flew down there for a bagpipe competition with my Irish band. I play bagpipes. So the event got canceled and because of the weather down there. But just being down there, it's just clean and the roads were beautiful. I'm like driving on the road. I'm like, wow, this road's so nice. It's like people look at you like, what? But people from Long Island know what's going on because you drive on the Long Island Expressway and it's like pothole city, stuff's filled in. Like, where's the money? Where's the infrastructure? Things like we're in need of that. Big, beautiful signs in these states. We just it's just not. We need more of that. And so I don't know. But the taxes are definitely something that's a problem or a challenge, especially on Long Island.
Yeah, that makes sense. So what I kind of hear you saying, and I definitely agree, is that no matter where you are, whether you're having a lot of people coming into your state or coming out of your state, whatever it might be, there's pros and cons, right, to every state. So it's Florida, we're definitely not perfect. I mean, we're in the news every week for something. So there's definitely pros and there's definitely cons, but
it's hot down there.
Yeah, if this is true. I'm literally warm right now, so if I could give a personal recommendation to anybody out there listening, I do have a personal connection to Long Island, but I will tell you right now, Tom is right. It is a wonderful place to live. So don't be discouraged by anything you might see on the television. So moving along here, Tom, for the people out there that don't know this, I can't remember if you mentioned it up top or not. I don't think so, but Tom does have his own podcast as well called the Long Island Housing Podcast. I listened to the most recent one because I like to do my research, right? And you were talking about people who might want to sell their home during the holidays, or more specifically, people who are unsure of if it's even a good time to sell at all. And I thought you had some good information on there, and it's something that people don't really talk about a lot, especially because everyone gets so wrapped up in their personal schedules around this time. But of course, it's still an option for many people. So I was wondering if you could touch on basically kind of the talking points that you had in your podcast about what the pros might be, that sort of thing.
Oh yeah. So I'll back up real 2 seconds. The podcast, I really wanted to make a podcast that was all about the consumer and not so much about me. It's kind of very similar to your 54 Realty and the podcast design of yours. It's not about how great the brokerage is. It's just, hey, this is what we're doing to keep in touch with the folks and let them know about it, whether it's agents, the market, etc. I wanted to make a podcast that was not about other real estate agents or anything else, or me per se. It was mainly about, hey, what does the consumer need right now, and how can I give that to them? So with that in mind, every month I kind of look at the real estate numbers, I break them down, etc. And then I do other topics. So this topic here, because we're in the holidays, and I had just spoken with at least 5 people in the last couple of weeks who had said, I'm putting it off. One of my old managers used to do this thing for the reasons to sell during the holidays. And I'm one of the persons I always I don't like to be told what I should do, but so I didn't want to make it like you should sell now or something like that, or this is why you should sell. It's not about that. It's about, hey, if you did or you considered it, what would you expect? So the first thing, and most importantly, especially now during COVID, during the course of the year, January through October, you have a varying pool of buyers and people who want to maybe be nosy, something like that. They don't have a pre-approval. They're just kicking tires. You're really going to eliminate that buyer almost entirely in, November 15th through December 31st. They're too busy. You're only going to get the serious qualified buyer. And I think that's super important, especially during COVID, that people know that, you're just not going to get the riffraff or somebody, again, who's kicking tires. You don't want to take the chance. I understand, but that's one thing you're going to get is a serious qualified buyer, because no one's going to be out without a pre-approval looking around. They're just not going to do it because they're going to be like, I'll wait until January.
Right.
The serious buyer, they're going to be hunting, and another major thing too is when you decorate your house, like if you're selling something, you want to dress it up. Okay, it could be anything. It could be your used car. It could be, whatever. Companies like to do that. The packaging, everything else. Well, your home is beautifully packaged during the holidays. Most people decorate. So now when the buyer comes in, you're going to increase that emotional connection that they have. They're not only going to see themselves just cooking a meal, right, on a Friday. They're going to see themselves cooking Thanksgiving there. They're going to see, and they're going to see the whether, if you're celebrating Christmas, have a tree, or they'll see the candles, Hanukkah, whatever it is you're doing, it's going to warm them up. So it's going to increase their probably the amount of connection they have, and then also how much they might pay for it, right? So if you're selling, it behooves you to do that. And then the third major reason is, and I'm sure you guys down there experience this too, you have contingent buyers and non-contingent buyers. So if you as a seller can capitalize now, especially in this market, which is here on Long Island, it's a tough market, great for sellers, and actually sell your house or be in contract when you go to buy something. Let's say you go to buy in April, May, or June, you'll won't be a non-contingent buyer, and that's huge, because contingent buyer meaning you have a home to sell. Let's say,
right.
You don't want to be that buyer in April, May, June when you really want to buy a house, and I have this house to sell. Your offers are not going to, they'll still be there, but they're not going to be as good as the person who doesn't have a home to sell. So that's a huge one, huge advantage to sellers who want to make it happen. And with that comes the flexibility, because buyers right now, let's say you got your home in contract in December and you say, I don't want to close until April 30th. Guess what? You're going to have buyers, especially now, they're going to be like, oh yeah, no problem. Closing April 30th. You want May 30th? Don't worry about it. They want to lock up your house in contract, because they want to buy something. But so those are the main reasons. And, I think the podcast is, I designed it so that it's for people to listen to and get information out of.
Well, I can say, and I say this probably every episode, but as somebody who is not a real estate agent, right? And also somebody who was recently in the rental market and, I'm looking long-term to purchase a home. This is all stuff that I had never considered. I mean, obviously I'm in a different position being on the buy side, right? But if I was looking to sell my home at any point during this crazy potentially will be 2-year period that we've had of a seller's market, those would be the three things you just listed, things that I would want to capitalize on that, again, I had never heard before. I mean, the first one is a strong point in and of itself, right? I mean, you don't have people who are just, on the weekend, hey, let me look at Zillow, because they're busy with other things. So like you said, you have those serious buyers, and I think they're probably chomping at the bit. And that's a great point for people so just from what I'm hearing, I think people out there who might still be on the fence about possibly selling their home, now might be a great time. And if you're looking for more useful information like that, check out Tom's podcast. We'll put the links and everything down below as well. But thanks for expanding on that, Tom. That's all great information. So talking about the market and market conditions and things like that, as far as I know, just from seeing other episodes that Joe's done with his realtor friends that are out of state, market conditions are pretty prevailing across the entire country right now. I think we're all pretty much still living in this seller's market. As far as what I've heard from other people, they don't predict it bursting anytime soon, or they don't predict that correcting itself in a dramatic way anytime soon. I was wondering if you could talk a little bit about what you're seeing out there in Long Island, if it is kind of mirroring what we're seeing here, and just how that might be affecting your business.
On my podcast, I talked about the bubble and all that other stuff, and the differences between what this market is and what that market was. And I always mention the movie The Big Short. It's a great movie. It's a great movie about, it's so good, right? So anyways, that portrays really what was going on. I love the mortgage brokers in that movie too. I just think they're just hysterical, because they represent so much of what was going on then. And you see that with other things now. I won't mention anything, but I had a conversation about a lead generation source online. I'm going off on a tangent here, but with another agent, and the things he was saying about this online lead generation thing, which is destroying our value as realtors.
Yeah.
And he was just like, oh, I closed so many deals and da, 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 and I got, it's great. And, I'm like, and all I did was I wrote in like The Big Short. It was like I was on social media and I said, you can remind me of the mortgage guys. And I put a clip up of them talking, because you can get so wrapped up into stuff and become part of the problem. So the first thing I tell every buyer is you are going to pay top dollar in this market. I put it in an email, I put it in a text, and I talk to them and I let them know, because I want them to know that I know you're doing this, and I don't want to steer you wrong. Okay. And because I never sold a home in 2006. Okay. I only sold like one house in 2007. I started selling in 08, and I used to tell the people then, the buyers then, this is a long-term strategy. And I say the same things now, because I knew in 08, the market was going to keep going down. I didn't know it was going to last until 2013, but be that as it may, I always want to be very realistic with folks, letting them know that real estate is a long-term strategy. So if you're buying in this market, the market is super intense. It is, if you approach it like you make an offer and you're going to get this house and you're going to be so downtrodden if you don't get it, you're in for some real, gut shots, because this is a tough market. If you approach it like, hey, I'm going to do my best, I'm have some fun with my real estate agent, and I'm going to learn a lot, and I'm going to get the right house at the right time, and then you're in a much better position, emotionally, to make it a better experience, because it can be very stressful. So yeah, here in Long Island, we have less than 2,900 homes for sale. Last I checked, out of almost 700,000 units, right?
Wow.
Total. Yeah, with 2,900. Go back to 2008, we had 18,000. 2009 on Long Island was 45,000 homes for sale at one point. Now we are under 8,000, I think, total. That's between Queens, Nassau, and Suffolk. So it's a very challenging market. It's challenging for sellers who want to buy something, but definitely doable if things are handled, the right way. And I would say now more than ever, the one thing I would tell anyone watching anywhere in the 50 states, if you're in a tough market, and now more than ever, do not, and I hate to say this because I don't want people to, new agents to get discouraged, but if you're a consumer, you should work with someone who has experience. If they're not experienced, or a team, right? If they're a team leader who's intimately involved with a new agent, fine, that's good. But if you're new, you cannot afford to do that, because they're going to screw things up way too much, and you're going to be not in a good position, whether you're selling or buying. So experienced realtors right now are very valuable.
Absolutely. So something that I was thinking of while you were saying that is a motto that I tend to go by, which on its face might seem pessimistic, but I see it more as realistic, which is just, if you set your expectations very low, you will not be disappointed by much, right? So
yeah, exactly.
Like you were saying about, people who are very gung-ho and they, on the buying side, and they are like, yeah, they think they're going to get the first house that they love, that they see. And you very well might, it's a possibility, but I think it's definitely a useful tool to be like, not to get ahead of yourself, basically, right? So I think that's kind of in line with what you're saying. And I also agree with your advice about having an experienced agent. I mean, there's obviously a lot of new agents out there. And my advice to them, just based on what I know, would be identify yourself with a brand or a team or a mentor or whatever it might be who has that experience, has the tools and resources to back you up, so that you can present as a more experienced than you might actually be, which can help you down the line. But I definitely agree. I mean, and there's plenty of agents out there who can help you get the top dollar for your house. So great advice there, Tom. So I wanted to get into some more stuff about you specifically here at the end. So again, coming from my research, on your website, you have a quote or a blurb rather about confidence, and I'm going to read it, but I'm probably going to put it on the screen as well. And you say, confidence comes from the Latin word fidere. I don't know if I'm saying that correctly, but that means to trust. And therefore, having self-confidence is having trust in oneself. And I thought that was interesting. It piqued my attention because, I interact with a lot of agents on a daily basis. And we get to talking about what is it that makes an agent. Like, what are the key characteristics or qualities that you need to have, or that you should have, or that you should strive for. And I think you putting confidence on your website speaks to what you believe in. So I was wondering if you could expand on that and how important you think it is to be self-confident as a real estate agent.
Yeah. So for real estate agents, and this is going to be a kind of like something that a new agent can run with, as if you know your value, what value you bring, that value component, no matter what it is, it could be your positive attitude. Like it could be somebody with crazy positive, man, like we're getting this, or, and not be false positive, but a positive energy. Whatever it is, if you have a value component, you need to attach yourself to that, because if you know that, hey, that's my thing, then that's going to help you feel like you trust yourself because you have this value advantage and offering to a consumer or a client. At the end of the day,
your guns, right?
Yeah, you want to be. We all want to be productive. It's not even like it's about making money, and you want to make money and everything else, especially as a new agent or an agent ever. But you also want to be productive. When the phone's not ringing and you're just sitting around, or the emails aren't coming in, or whatever the situation is, you need to make it happen. You need to go out there and do that. And the only way you're going to do that is say, hey, I trust the process. I trust myself. I trust my value component that I can provide to the seller or buyer, my target audience. And the more you trust that process, you trust yourself, and you can carry yourself with confidence, because confidence is going to get you through the times where, times are tough, deals die. I remember like back in 2010, I had, it was my worst string. It was like March of 2010. I had 9 deals die. And Oof. I had like 12 or 13 in contract. And that was like, that will really test you bad, and I've had deals die and everything else, but I'll never forget that. And I ended up making the most amount of money I've ever have in 2010, 2011. And then I did it again in, 15, 16, 17, 18. But back then, that was the most amount of money I ever made. And that was my 9 deals dead, but I had the confidence. I trusted myself. I trusted the process and my value component, or proposition, you want to be, a unique selling proposition, whatever it is. It's important to have that, because it'll get you through.
I agree wholeheartedly. And it's not to sound like a book of Proverbs or whatever, but you fake it till you make it if you must, because you might not feel that self-confidence. But like you're saying, if you just think, I know what I'm doing, or I know I have a team of people who can help me get through this, or whatever it might be, that will show. You'll project that, right? And then to your point about sticking to the one thing that is your strength, or whatever it might be. I mean, we have realtors that make a whole brand out of that. We just had a training here at our brokerage about, branding yourself and marketing and that sort of thing. And there was a point in there about finding that one unique thing about you and letting that really shine through. So you might not be the realtor that has every, tool in their toolkit, but you might have a really good hammer. You know what I'm saying? So stick to that hammer.
Yeah, the wrenches, the screwdrivers, none of them work, but the hammer works.
But hey, let me tell you, the hammer's good, man. Not to digress too much, but we literally have two agents with the last name Hammer. So it's funny that I would have chosen hammer as a tool. So great advice there, Tom. Great points all around. I just had 2 closing questions for you here, sir. And these are ones that, we do on every podcast. So the second to last one is, if you had not chosen real estate as your career, if you could go back in time pre-2007 and you had to choose something else, what would you see yourself doing?
So my manager, one of my old ex-manager, he's a great guy, but he always used to say, I could never see myself doing anything other than real estate. And it always rang true, but that was him, and I always looked at it and said, having a different, he had an MBA too, but like real estate was like, that was his thing. Math made sense. And, just the world kind of came together for him. Me, at this point in my life, definitely, I don't see myself doing anything else. However, I did go to school. I got a master's degree in counseling, and I got a certificate of guidance counseling. And I wanted to do that, but something told me, hey, I don't want to make $70,000 a year. I'd really like to make $70,000 a month. And that's kind of took me in that. That's why I got involved in real estate. So the, you know, but I do enjoy talking with people, and that's an extension of that training. That was my background. I used to do drug and alcohol counseling. I was a behavior therapist before that, and I would write behavior programs and work with staff to help them from like hitting themselves in the head, scratching their skin, all that stuff. And I really enjoyed a lot of that. So I could, if I didn't do this, I would either be doing that, I'd be a supervisor there, or I would be a guidance counselor. So, working with kids and stuff, really good stuff.
Yeah, that clicks for me, what you're saying, because I mean, there are definitely different scenarios, of course, but real estate or counseling or whatever it might be, in both scenarios, you're helping somebody at the end of the day, right? So there's a overarching theme there. Yeah.
Oh yeah, any agent will say, you're like a part-time psychotherapist,
Therapist.
Yeah. Even though you just got to be there for the client, listen to them, yeah, and the better you are at that, using your 2 ears more than your one mouth, you'll be servicing them a lot better, especially if you hang in there with them, meet them at their level, really listen to what they have to say. That's super important. And, that's probably one of my value components, is that I do that. It's just hard to convey in marketing and stuff. So I don't talk about it as much, but
yeah,
it's something that I have an advantage, I think, over some agents.
No, I think that's a great skill to have. I mean, some people probably, because I'm sure it's, again, not an agent, but I'm just guessing. At some point along the process, I'm sure people tend to get overwhelmed, stressed out, whatever it might be. And, that
confused.
Yeah. And that barrier of like client agent sort of dissolves at some point, I would think, especially depending on how long you're working with somebody. Like, so I'm sure they tend to unload on you guys a lot emotionally. So I definitely think that's a great skill to have, just navigating that. So Tom, my closing question, which is the classic closing question on this podcast, if you could speak directly to all the new agents out there, or all the agents who might be struggling, whatever it might be, and give them some kind of advice, what would you say?
It's funny that you close with this, because I write as a hobby a blog, and the blog is it's called Bang the Phones. And I launched it a few years ago, and I had a lot of real estate agents locally, especially in my office, my company. They were all like, "Bang the phones, baby!" It was like a funny thing. And I had created it to try and actually recruit other agents to join my team, because I was offering training. Because I think training is it's so important. And a lot of brokerages, they try to put that training component in, but it may not be as comprehensive as, let's say, a new agent needs. So I put stuff there for free, and it's from your unique, developing unique selling proposition, and really focusing on that is super important. Stuff like how, scripts for like how to call your sphere of influence. It's one thing to have the component to say, do this, this, and this, but it's, hey, how do I do that? How do I say it? How do I write a personal note? How do I write a letter that, represents me, and all that? And that goes back to the component of the blog, which is straight up free information for agents to grab there. So, but I would say overall, one of the things that you're going to need to develop as an agent is your value. What value do you bring? Because when you sit in with a buyer or a seller, if you know that in here, it's not about selling it, it's about owning it. And if you own it, that gives you that little bit of confidence, that little bit of what to say, when to say it, kind of thing. You're going to need that. And the second thing I would say is your training, your practicing, practice, drill, rehearse. The things that another broker would say, hey, knowing all those little things like, what to say when a buyer says this, or what to say, or how to, talk about this disclosure or something like that. How to say, not listing agreement, but paperwork, or use different words and things like that help smooth a process and a selling process. because the selling process is just the ball moving forward, right? So those are the two things I would say most agents are going to need is that value, knowing it, owning it, and then training, just drill, rehearse constantly, nonstop, over and over again, how to ask for a referral, how to network, knowing, what to say to a forced sale by owner. If you're going to call forced sale by owners, you're going to door knock, how to take, help somebody's guard, have them guard drop for just 30 seconds so that you can have that window where you make that connection, hand them a business card, and it's safe to do that. So they're not, like mad at you or whatever. Super important. That stuff is like, and it makes it easier for you then to go and hand out a flyer and say, hey, we have an open house, I listed the house around the corner, here you go. And not just give them the piece of paper, but get an email, get a phone number, take the conversation just a little bit further so that it becomes value to them and to you. Because handing them a piece of paper, they're going to throw it in the garbage. But if you hand a piece of paper and talk about your email list and how you're doing X, Y, and Z in the neighborhood, they might go, oh yeah, I'll give you my email. Boom, there you go. Now you have someone that can put in your, your CRM and everything else, which is probably the third thing you should have, which is your CRM up and running.
Even I know that. Yeah. Well, that's great advice, Tom. So, number one, find that thing within yourself. Number two, don't be afraid to look for training and things like that. So I think your blog is a great resource because, you and I were talking about this a little bit earlier before we recorded, but people, especially in this business, get hit with like information overload, email, social media, whatever it might be. So it's good to have all of that in one place. And we'll definitely put that either on the screen or in the description or both. So check out Tom's blog. I'm sure there's a lot of good stuff on there. I'll probably have to check it out myself as well. And before we wrap here, Tom, I just wanted to say first, thank you very much for coming on.
Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. And then secondly, if the people out there in Long Island want to buy or sell with your team, how can they reach you?
My cell phone's 631-831-9048. Best way to reach me. And the best link, I'm going to give you my link tree. Everyone uses a link tree. I think they're fantastic. Yeah. That's the linktr.ee/ and it's my name, Tom McGiveron. You can get everything there.
Boom.
Follow me on Instagram. It'd be awesome.
Yeah, absolutely. And we'll tag you in the post and everything. So guys, make sure you go check out Tom's links. It's a lot of good information there. And check out his podcast as well. There's some good stuff. I was just listening to it earlier. But I guess that's it, my friend. Again, I really appreciate you coming on. I hope everything goes well for you the rest of the day.
Hey, I appreciate you having me. And I think what the 54 Realty is doing, I love the Instagram. I love the podcast. I just think it's a great component for them to have you hosting this and the owner too hosting the podcast. It's just good information and a good marketing approach to getting the word out there about the company. It's good stuff.
Thanks, Tom. Well, I'll blush for everyone on behalf of everyone. Really appreciate you, sir. Have a great rest of your day. All right. Take it easy, man.
Take care. Happy holidays.
Long Island, hold it down. All right, that was Tom McGiveron of the McGiveron team up in Long Island, New York. It was a great episode. I think he gave some really good advice there. And I also thought it was a cool situation that, we had Tom reach out to say he wanted to be on the podcast because up until now, it's just been people we'd known. So it's nice to get a perspective from somebody that you don't really get to hear from that often, especially because I don't think I've had anybody from New York on this podcast yet. So it was all good information there. I'm going to put all his links in his podcast, his blog, and everything down in the description. So make sure you guys go check all of that out. It's some really good stuff on there. I've been looking at it myself, like I was saying. And let's see, housekeeping stuff. This is episode 14. The newest update for you guys is that Spotify has granted us, in their divine ways, with the opportunity to do video podcasts on Spotify. So they only grant that to a select few podcasts. I'm not sure exactly how they qualify it, but all I know is I had to apply and they approved us. So now you can actually watch the videos on Spotify as well, instead of just the audio version. That's the newest thing. Everything else is the same as usual. So Instagram, Facebook, at The Real Estate Playbook. Make sure to give us a follow. Subscribe to the YouTube channel. Like us on Spotify, obviously. Google Podcasts, all that good stuff. The website, as always, is therealestateplaybook.com. You can see the most recent episode and submit a form to be on the show if you'd like Tom. I think that's pretty much it. And I hope you guys had a great Thanksgiving, and we will see you next week. Take care.